Awaken the light. The cosmos is within you. Remember who you are.
Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everyone. I hope all is well. I'm coming to you on a different day. Um, Give me a sec. I want to make sure I'm streaming on YouTube before I get started. I want to see. Okay, 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 okay. I'm on. Love lights, Ashe. Welcome all to. Well, this is sort of like the Ascension. Um, it's sort of like a preview. So, my goal is to try to come on here more often, um, and to do more streams, develop more content for folks. We actually hit 100 subscribers. Woo! Woo! Woo, woo, woo. So, yay to all the people who subscribe. We hit 100. What I should do is do my quick graphic here. I love this little happy graphic. We hit 100. Yay! Yes, not only did we hit 100 on YouTube, but we actually on my page on Facebook we hit 100 too. So 2, 11, 1 is 2, manifestation. I'm claiming this, the ending of some cycles, 2 cycles, 2 zeros, and the beginning of something new, manifesting something, not something new, manifesting this walk, right? This spiritual walk. The signs and the symbol, the signs and symbols, the way in which spirit, universe, ancestors communicate with us. We have to really be sort of zeroed in on these things to understand. Not understand, because sometimes we don't understand. It's like sometimes we just need to have confirmation, something to underscore, support the faith that people hold in goals to do something for which there may not necessarily be a lot of evidence yet, right? Faith is the belief in what is coming, the belief. You don't see it yet, but you have faith that it's there and you're going to walk into it, right? And so it's nice to have signposts along the way. Like deja vu is one of those signposts. Whenever, for me, my interpretation of deja vu is I'm supposed to be where I'm at in that moment, doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And there are a lot of other explanations for deja vu. Actually, that's just one layer of what I believe about deja vu. It's confirmation of a place, space, time, event, right? So yes. So thank you, YouTube. And I got to get on Facebook and say thank you to them too. Little housekeeping here. If you like these videos, these live streams, you think I'm talking about some good stuff, that could help you, but could help everybody or anybody, hit the like, subscribe, notifications to, get the information out there into the YouTube algorithm ether. I really don't know how these things work, but I'm told like, subscribe, hit notifications helps get the video into the stream of exposure. Algorithmic exposure. So actually, I'm glad to be here. This is not like a normal regular Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? What I want to do is beginning today, and hopefully I'll feel the same. I experiment. I do things and then I sit and see how it feels, right? So I'm doing this. Um, I feel I'm being called to do more live streams, right? And so I'm doing one on Monday, which is a sort of like a generalized intro into the topic, the nine body of light topic, and the Ascension we're going to hit on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? And so this Monday is just like sort of a general discussion, more mainstream discussion. Um, and then with the Ascension, we move into more of an African spirituality perspective regarding the nine body of light that we are addressing. And this week, it's the shoot, SHUT. And that's a long U with the line over top of the U. And the shoot is the shadow, right? And so we're going to get really deep into that in the commentary on Tuesday, in the teaching on Wednesday, and then in the practice on Thursday. So today, again, like I said, just do sort of a general take on the shadow self, right? Because people talk about it all the time. And so there's a general take on Monday. And then on Friday, because I sort of like leave it flat on Thursday, we do all this discussion and then it's like done. And so Friday, what I want to do is a week end, two separate words, week end wrap, RAP, play on wrap up. And it's just sort of a discussion about what we talked about, more free flowing. Because one thing that I'm realizing is that the audience or seekers or people here may not necessarily get the fullness of what's in my head, right? And how it could come out my mouth. Now, I am one to create presentations, have notes, and those things because over time as a public speaking teacher, my PhD's in communication, social sciences, but I've learned some tricks of the trade and you understand the things that you need for yourself as far as what kind of presenter and talker and sharer. And so for me, I utilize notes. I sort of stick to them because first of all, I have a lot on me, a lot that wants to come out of my mouth that's being downloaded into me, right? And that wants to come out. And sometimes I want to give it all. And it could be confusing, right? We academics or ex-academics can just talk a lot of stuff without really explaining all the concepts, and some things may not be linking up for the viewer. And so the notes help me put the stitching together the way it should, one thing at a time, right? It also ensures that I break down the concepts that I need to so that there is some understanding on some level for the people, for the folks who are interacting with these videos. And it keeps me from going off on tangents because I do love tangents, right? I mean, anybody who's doing live streams and talking like this, can talk. So Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, I try to keep a boundary. Learning over the years, I've done over 200 conference presentations and speaking events. So, unless I'm going to memorize stuff, I don't like to speak extemporaneously, like with notes and outlines, because I can go off and I'm never really in time. You think some of these videos are long, like an hour, 52 minutes, hour, 38 minutes. We could be here for a good 2 hours if I'm just going to just speak extemporaneously. And of course I can rein that in. But I'm not going to memorize these live stream notes, right? Because I do riff on them. I do go off the beaten path from time to time. So yes, a new Monday, a general discussion of whatever we're getting into with a more African or more Kim-centric presentation on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday we have the week end wrap where I'm just talking. Might be a card pool or two. So it's experimentation, right? About what fits, what seems to be resonant with this walk that I believe I'm on. And the goal is to, as an example, I'm gonna tell you, it's interesting becoming a new creator, slash spiritual teacher. Well, I've always been a spiritual teacher, but using it in a social media way, right? And building up audiences and followers and stuff. And then the other part of that, trying to make money, which is, I might just go to donations because I might have better luck getting donations than I have for people buying my services at this time, which is all fine and good, right? It's all fine and good. Um, but but yeah, serve as an example for folks maybe to see like what it's like, trying to discover what works and what doesn't work. I guess that's the bottom line. What works and what doesn't work. Um, and it is all trial and error. And and it is in the body, so confirmation comes in the body, not just in the mind. And if it is in your mind, I don't know, it could be a download, an intuitive download. If you're thinking about it and trying to strategize it out, that's important, right? Especially once you figure out what your walk is or what you're supposed to be doing. But in trying to do it, sometimes just do it. Oh, that's Nike. Just do it. And then see how it settles vibrationally within yourself. Because all of this stuff should be an extension of being, right? Being, right? Being is just I am. It's just like a plant, like my plant Fleshy, who I've had all these conversations about being with, right? Fleshy introduced me to being, right? You don't have to do anything except just be in all of your naturalness, intrinsicness, right? It should be effortless. And so that's the same approach to utilizing these channels. There should be some effortlessness in it. Of course, like anybody, I want a nice set. I want better cameras. I want to go into an office and do this. And, maybe, in my workshops have cameras to take pictures. I mean, I don't have all that right in this moment. Doesn't mean it's not coming. But I mean, I want that. But, the idea is it should just feel a natural effort, and it shouldn't feel put on. It shouldn't feel onerous. It shouldn't feel problematic or stressful, right? There may be stress all around, and maybe folks are doing this sort of work and, taking a leap of faith, maybe, it's different money coming in, different things that could be stressful, but the actual act of journeying anew in a transformed way should not make you tired and upset, and stressed, right? We all go through ebbs and flows, ups and downs. We're happy, we're energized, then we're kind of, mellow or maybe melancholy, maybe even a little sad. I mean, I am just like everyone else, even though I speak these things that have the potential to just do wonderful things in people's lives if indeed they are utilized and practiced in a disciplined fashion. We all got our stuff in our walks, right? And nobody's walk is not challenging. And I hope I just didn't go off and forget what I was saying before. So, welcome. And I'm excited. And just to be straight up with you, yes, since last Wednesday, I have been struggling, right? Struggling to get on here, struggling to do live streams. I was thinking I was ill, right? I was just so, I don't know what it was, just like to sleep. Now, granted, I could be tired, right? Um, and it was every ounce of energy to come on yet last week, especially Wednesday and Thursday, to come on and do the live streams. And so I know my patterns, right? And this is what happens with Pat. And this is part of the shadow talk I'm going to talk about today. But, I know my patterns, and I can quit something, right? I have quit things. Didn't feel good. I ain't doing it no more. Oh, I got to take some time off. Oh, no. Right? And then I go back a year or two later, and I'm even more behind than what I was before. And then I used to compare myself. Oh, if I would have stayed on there, I would have had the same thing as those people, what they have now, but I quit. And then I get, I used to get more down in the dumps. It was like a vicious cycle. And so I know now that my feelings are not real. I don't buy into my feelings. Yes, I was exhausted. I could not do it the way I wanted to do last week. And even though, I was coming on just like Thursday, just coming on and not tripping the way I look, I was here. I showed up and I did it. Right? And that's the most important thing. But I realized that the shadow, I can be a self-saboteur. Okay? Particularly when it comes to sometimes growing things. Because back in the day, I was so ego-driven, right? And that's a whole nother story, but that's the shadow self. And I would do things to hinder the progress. Stop, right? Oh, it's not working. I'm done. I've been doing this for a little bit longer than 6 weeks. 6 months now. And the thing about it is that I love what I do. I enjoy this work. It is a leap of faith. I left a really good job to do this work. But that good job was beating me up. So it wasn't, the money might have been good, but it wasn't worth the beatdown I was getting all the time. Right. And the beatdown was just how I configured myself in that space. Right. It wasn't the right space for me. And I had been in that space for 25 years. And so understanding my pattern over the years, I no longer allow my feelings or these emotions of like, ain't nothing working, right? Like I talked about the power of words, no more generative power, right? I will not sit in that about it's not working. I don't know what I'm doing. This is never going to work. This is where people can go when they are in this walk, right? And so I understand that that's all a lie. All that's a lie. I'm not going to accept anything about that. There may be things that need to be tweaked, but I'm not going to let me talk me out of doing something that I feel I'm being called to do. Because I understand my pattern. Now, you could keep going, and then you have more realizations, and then you realize it's not just a feeling. Maybe you realize, okay, maybe I need to augment this with something else. Maybe I need to do something else. Maybe I need to move this into a different environment, right? But my feelings I understand, are lies. And that's because of all the trauma that I've had in my life. And I will not act on the feeling. Now, of course, some things are really important. And maybe, I guess, partly because I'm an empath and I have psychic abilities, that, I can discern a little better than most, right? Because I do get those downloads, those confirmations and things, and the dreams, and I can understand the 3D reality a little deeper, right? But when I talk about the saboteur in me, the listening to the feelings that are ego driven, right? That is part of the shadow self. And understanding that my shadow self is such that, or an aspect of my shadow is such that it's so traumatized, it needs such external validation, right? That I have to put her in check, because she can be extremely, problematic to a successful walk. Now, sometimes that shadow comes out, and that shadow needs to come out because the shadow just got to act up. Just because the shadow's in the dark doesn't mean it's dark, right? It's not evil. It's a piece of me. But sometimes that shadow is important. You can't bypass the shadow. Sometimes the shadow needs some light, right? And the shadow is sort of the engine to a lot of the things that we do. My shadow has a name. I personify my shadow so that I know when she shows up. I can call her out. I don't have to bypass her. Because I can't. Because my shadow is me. Now, some people say, Dr. Akila Ka Ma'at, you crazy. What do you mean your shadow has a name? I believe in naming everything. And just because it has a name doesn't mean it's like a name. It could be like any kind of name. I'm not sharing my shadow's name, right? Because that's a personal thing. But you can't bypass the shadow. We try to hide the shadow. But when we try to hide the shadow, that is when she starts, let me out, let me out. We have to honor the shadow alchemy. And that's sort of like in African spirituality traditions. This is like Yoruba spirituality. I mean, there's a name. There's nothing in African spirituality about a shadow self, right? That's really all Carl Jung. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute, the more general perspective. But the shadow is sometimes the damaged part of us. And so in African spirituality, it's not about bypassing or hiding. It's about integration, right? Understanding that self and integrating that self as a part of the whole, right? Not as something to be ashamed of or guilty of, right? But that's something we'll talk about more on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But the shadow self, and I just gave an example about my little shadow self, right? And there's more examples there, but I know when she's coming. I can call her, name her, and I can stop her or ignore her. And I think that's very important. I can be mindful of when she wants to say things to me that challenge my spiritual walk, that want to make me feel bad, right? I encourage everybody to give their shadow a name. Yuppa, yuppa, yuppa. I think it's so important. And everybody wants to work shadow work, shadow work, shadow work, shadow work. You know, these things are important. And shadow work, shadow integration. I don't know about shadow work, shadow integration. It's not hard to spot your shadow. But I'm going to tell you one thing about the shadow. And I did talk about a little bit earlier. The self we want to hide is the most passionate, honest, realest self. And like I had mentioned before, the engine, because if the shadow is trauma, the trauma may incite passion to do something phenomenal in life, right? To help people, to excel, overcome in some profoundly prophetic way. It's just in how we think about integration. And you know, they have all these ads out now about tell your story. If you've overcome something, do a TEDx talk or a TED talk, right? The shadow being celebrated. What was that resilience? The resilience story, the resilience process. Because resilience is not one thing. And it's not just a noun or an adjective. It describes a process, right? It describes a process, my friends. So we all know that the general tone when it comes to the shadow is that it's the part that we hope that nobody ever sees. And I know that whoever's going to watch this video knows exactly what I'm talking about, right? The reaction you're ashamed of 5 minutes later, right? You thought you would never ever say it out loud. The version of you that shows up when somebody pushes the wrong button. You don't even recognize her once the storm passes. And that pattern, as I've mentioned, that pattern, the one you keep repeating, the one you cannot quite explain yet, no matter how many times you promise yourself, not this time. That part of you, as I said, is not your enemy. For many of us, it's our engine. You know, it just has a name. And it's going to keep running your life from the shadows if you don't embrace the shadow. And you all know who I am, Minister Dr. Akila Ka Ma'at. And so I want to pull back the curtain a little bit on the side that people want to hide, right? The hidden self. Carl Jung, as I've mentioned, he called it the shadow. Same thing, the hidden self, the shadow. I don't even like the shadow because in the shadow, things are scary. You know, there's something under my bed. I saw a shadow. You know, a shadow is scary. Anything that's dark. And you know, the whole dark thing, you know, melanin, black, Kim, black people, dark and light. Dark is bad. Light is good. That's all in American society because our English is so whacked, right? We don't have any nuances for this. But dark means bad. bad, scary, evil. And these are the things that we equate when we think about the shadow self. So, as I said, today it's just a little bit of a general introduction before we go all the way in this week. Okay. So let's see. Whoever's going to watch this, let's see if we can go meet the part of you that you keep hiding, which you should not keep hiding, right? Because it's all about taking that energy and spinning it in a way so that it serves as an effective engine. Okay? So, some people may wonder, what is a shadow self, right? Like, what is it? So let me clear something up, because a lot of people get this wrong. And I just want to make sure, and this again is general. This is not the African Kim-based discussion that I'm going to get into. Okay, on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So, what is a shadow self, right? What is this? Your hidden self is the part of you that most people want to disown, right? And I'm just going to give personal examples of this because I don't really know how else to do this. The part of you that you want to disown, I used to have a temper, horrible temper. I would just curse people out, just awful. I would treat people so mean because I was a horrible person at one time in my life. Maybe not as horrible as I'm saying now, right? We always see ourselves a little bit more worse off than somebody else does. But I did want to disown that. And when that person would come back up, this is where I understood and embraced her, it would destroy me. I'd be so depressed because that side showed up, right? And so it was a part of me that I wanted to disown. And so that is Carl Jung's word, disown. And it's everything that you or I learned early and painfully, right? And people's response to the way we showed up in that way. Too much, too loud, too angry, too needy, too sensitive, too different. And think about it. What does a child do with the parts of herself that get her shamed, right? Or punished or left out of something? What happens? She does the only thing that she can to survive. She hides them, feels guilty about them, ashamed of them. She pushes them down and out of sight so she can stay safe, so she can stay loved, so she can belong, which is an innate intrinsic motivation. People need to feel like they belong to something. And in order to do that, we'll just crumble up a part of ourselves and put it to rest like we're burying it in the ground. And we all know that does not work. The ostrich puts his head in the ground, but the danger is still there nonetheless. The ostrich is still ostrich. The issue is still there too. Nothing changes. It's just that, like the ostrich, you can't fully see because your eyes are covered up. Shadow self, you got 4 eyes, 2 third eyes, right? 2 hearts, duplicate, double. Now, yes, this is a metaphor, or it's just personifying, as I said, your shadow, but it is doing double duty for you. because there's two of you to evaluate and be in and be, which is very powerful. So here's how the shadow works. I don't know if this is for everybody, but maybe for some folks, a lot of folks, right? So as a child, right, we learn real fast what gets a smile, right, and what gets a slam door, like what you get in trouble for, right? So there's a mask, like Goffman, backstage front stage. Goffman was a famous philosopher or theorist who talked about the front stage and the backstage performance, right? And communication, you know, that mask, that front stage, and then the backstage is where all the work happens and where all the shadow goes in the back, right? So we operate regardless with a mask, a social mask, anyway. But just think, to tame the shadow, we put an even thicker mask on, the social mask, and then the mask that hides our precious peace that's a little out of control sometimes, right? A face you show the world is the mask, the acceptable you, and everything that doesn't fit that socially accepted mask gets calcified into an even bigger mask, okay? Or you send it to the basement, you throw it away. You can never get rid of anything, right? So say basement, it's not really in the basement. No, it's like a Siamese twin attached to you. You know, like those two figures, like some people have in a movie, like, you know, the good one and the bad one. And, you know, you're looking at the piece of cake and the good one's like, you know, you on that diet. You got to do, yeah, you've been doing good. And the anti-message is, hey, you ain't had that cake in a long time. You should eat that piece of cake. You don't know when you'll get a cake like that again. The other one's like, well, you know what that cake tastes like because you had it before. And the bad side's like, you ain't had it in a long time. You know, you really want that, right? So you got these two pieces here. And nobody wants to show that. Eat that food. Get that cake. Right? It's like, oh, not today, you know. Sometimes that's a straight up lie, right? That mask can be a lie. The mask makes it sound good, right? Like I got to take it off, put it on, right? So you're taking off the socially acceptable mask. Where's the shadow mask at, right? The one you had on. Sometimes we have that mask on, the shadow. When we go home, we just go nuts in shadow mode, right? And it's not hidden to the people who know and love us because we feel comfortable. But that could be problematic too, because you could destroy relationships, friendships, yourself. But look, many people will push that shadow self way down. Way down. Right? That basement is the hidden self, right? Oh, you don't want me to get angry, right? But you don't want to call up from that basement that energy, right? Look, the bigger the mask, the bigger the thing right behind it, okay? So, some of the most put together people you know are carrying the heaviest basements in the room. And just because they're put together, maybe have a lot of money or something like that, don't mean that they overcame anything, or they integrated the shadow, or they figured out how to do this, whatever this is. It could just mean that that mask is so solid. I used to wear a mask of confidence. Everybody thought I was confident. And little did they know that I was not. I mean, like, way not. They kept saying, fake it till you make it. But for some reason, I never felt like I made it. That's how come I know feelings are a lie. But listen, your hidden self, and I should have bought some tissues over here. I got the runny nose. So listen, your hidden self is not about dark stuff. And I do hate to use these adjectives because they all run amok. Black, dark, shadow. I'm going to use the terminology that I've been raised in because I don't have a bunch of other words that I feel like using right now from other languages to make this make sense. I think it would just make it even more complex. But yes, I have different terms that I use for these things so that I could bring nuances to my understandings, right? We talked about Nomo and Ren, the generative power of words, right? We don't have many in the English language. So sometimes you got to go outside of that. So your hidden self is not just the low frequency stuff, okay? It's not just your rage and your shame. It also holds light that we tend not to believe is there or understand or comprehend its existence within the shadow, right? The gifts you were told to hide. The power somebody said that was too much, right? Your boldness, your brilliance, your desire, your anger, even, which, let's be honest, was sometimes justified. Sometimes it was your dignity refusing to be crossed. And what's so funny is we can out this, right, in the moment, and then when we let it show, because it's important to get this out, because it's a necessity. Then we just sit in anguish and pain and anxiety about expressing that side of us. People go into panic mode about what they said. And that definitely does not feel good ever. But that's because we're trying to hide so much of what makes us unique and that protects us. Right? So Jung had a name for these things, right? Righteous indignation, your dignity shadow, right? Your boldness, your brilliance, being too much, right? The golden shadow, right? Because we bury our light just as often as we bury our dark. You get that? It's not just about burying what we don't want people to show because we think it's low frequency or negative, right? We will bury the good things to make other people comfortable. Or because we may be ashamed to let that light shine. Based on the conditions in which we have existed. So in the end, your hidden self is simple. It's everything true about you that you were never allowed to be. Not allowed by yourself, by others, by society, by religion, by any system. These are all systems that are more comfortable with a cookie cutter type of energy, right? Easier, more manageable. Sometimes it's a loving cookie cutter. You'll get more opportunities this way, you know? And we want those opportunities, right? You know, your look, the hidden self is by no means the worst of you. It is the truest of you that you are not allowed to be. The truest of you that you are not allowed to be. So here's the part that a lot of folks don't understand about the shadow. And it's the whole reason why I think it's important to have conversations about the shadow self. Your hidden self does not disappear when you push it down. All right. It does not die in the basement. It goes underground. And from down there in the dark, it runs your life. The shadow self, when it's pushed down, disowned, tried to forget about it, it will run your life. Okay? And Carl Jung said it about as plain as somebody could say this. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Powerful, huh? So I'll say it one more time. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And so you will call it fate when really it is just the part of you that you refuse to look at. So let me give you an example of how it runs you. And I want to be honest. I want you to be honest with yourself in these. Don't look away, okay? The first one is called projection. And we've talked a little bit about projection on Power Profit TV. You know, the thing you can't stand in other people, right? Oh, I can't stand that. Oh, I can't stand that, right? Oh, I can't stand them. They always bragging. Oh, I can't stand them. All they care about is money. 9 times out of 10, it is the exact thing you buried in yourself. That person who drives you up the wall is usually holding up a mirror. We judge hardest what we hide. And even as I'm saying that, I'm having a reminiscence of something that I used to always say. Right? Understanding now, looking at it, I can see how it was me, right? That I refuse to look at. I refuse to acknowledge, right? Projection is real. So if you want to identify your shadow self, that's one strategy. The thing you cannot stand in other people. What is it? All right. Second, your triggers. Psychologists talk about triggers all the time, right? You know the reaction is way too big for the moment, right? You blow up over something small. Or you go cold and shut all the way down, right? Your blow up was never about the dishes in the sink, my friend. Something down in the basement just got touched. And what is it that got touched? Because just like the power of release, we got to recognize what is, what comprises the shadow. So then we can do shadow alchemy. We can do integration. So we're not bypassing or disowning. So projection and then your triggers. What triggered you for real? That's a component of the hidden self. Self-sabotage. I have shared, a little bit of my experience with that. You get right up close to the thing you wanted your whole life, and then somehow you wreck it. A lot of folks have this. That is the part of you in the basement still trying to protect an old wound trauma in a way that made sense once. It made sense once upon a time, and it does not serve you now. Okay? And self-sabotage is so sneaky, and it can be so insidious. You think we nipped it in the bud? But you have to honestly see, and sometimes we can't even see ourselves as a self-saboteur. So that's why my clients, we do readings. I listen to them, and I try to, I sit in with them, with their guides, with their ancestors, in their intuition, in mind, assessing and evaluating the ways in which the hidden self rears its head. And self-sabotage is so hard for people to see and then to acknowledge. But self-saboteur or self-sabotage is a repeated pattern. It doesn't happen just once. Just like the triggers, just like projection, okay? And the fourth, of course, as I was just saying, the patterns, the same relationship in a brand new face, the same fight, the same kind of job, the same kind of friends, the same heartbreak over and over. That is your hidden self, writing the same story across your whole life until you finally turn around and read it. It's like that version of a definition of insanity. Doing something differently, thinking this time it's going to change, but it's just a recycling of what was, right? So doing the same thing, expecting change, but you're not changing anything. You're just creating a new condition, but not changing the axis around which that condition takes shape, which is you. So patterns. If somebody's always cheating on you in a relationship, what's happening there? It's not just the person. I'm not gonna date anymore. I'm done. I can't stand this. I'm always getting hurt. No, that's that. I'm done. I'm gonna harden my heart. I have clients that come in for psychic readings tell me this. When I give them a reading, they say, well, how about this person? Right? And I'm reading, I'm letting them know this person may not be the best for them, and they go off. I can't get nothing. I'm just going to shut down. It has nothing to do with that person. People treat us the way we teach them to treat us. And so if that situation keeps happening, somebody keeps cheating on you, treating you like what's a level of disrespect that is ridiculous, you can't blame the person. You can't blame yourself. What that is, it's what am I doing? What do I need to change so that this doesn't happen again? What is it? Not what's wrong with them, not what's wrong with me, but what is it that is creating the same experience over and over again? And all this stuff takes mindfulness. We really can't see or identify aspects of the hidden self if we're not mindful enough. And that's why sometimes it's good to have a guide to do this work. Shadow alchemy, right? So we don't bypass our shadow. We have to see. We have to open our eyes and see. And not be scared, because none of this is scary. This is your life, and you deserve the best life possible. And the only way it's going to be the best life possible for you is if we understand what's going on with us. Right? We always want to know what's going on with somebody else. And that's what this work does. It's deep work, but it's good work. And so another way is the things you do, you can't explain, right? The outburst. I remember for a long time in my life, once a month, I would go crazy. That sometimes they had to call a suicide hotline on me, because they thought I was going to kill myself. Once a month, I just lost my mind for like 2 days or 3 days. I mean, it was insane. I didn't even know what that was. I was always blaming it on the moon. It could have been partly because of the moon. But I could not explain it. I could not. That's something, the thing you cannot explain, right? The outbursts, the habits you hate, why you don't let anybody ever get close, but you hate it because you're not forming relationships that you would like. The thing you swore you would never do again. And then you did it, right? That is not just a flaw to beat yourself up over. And none of this is, I'm a bad person. Don't even go there. You're just a person, a wonderfully complex, beautiful person, right? But you don't beat yourself up over these things. That is the message coming up from the basement, trying to get your attention. The shadow self will knock, 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 like I said. Hey! Until you love it, until you embrace it and say you are okay. That's why I personify mine. I give it a name so that I can love. I can love the self. And it is a wounded self. Yeah? I don't recommend naming for everybody. I could care less if people think I talk to myself, right? There are a lot of psychologists that would say women who talk to themselves are geniuses, right? And they're also highly productive, right? And so I don't get caught up in all, the bad stuff, but I don't recommend for everybody, especially if you're around folks who would really, make you feel bad about calling your shadow self, having a name for the hidden self, the hidden aspects of you. But personification makes it easier to tease out the dimensions of that self, right? So this is the last one. And this is the hardest part of that. The hidden self will hide your gifts, right? The golden shadow keeps your real power, your real voice, your real calling locked away in darkness, in a low frequency. And so you shrink, you play it small, my friends. And you can't even tell yourself why that's happening, right? What you will not face does not go away. It goes underground, it runs you, and then you call it your personality, which is fine. None of this stuff is a judgment or an accusation. We just need to be aware of what is happening. And so I'm going to share with you an uncomfortable truth, or maybe it might not be, because the spiritual world has trained us not to really deal with this. The whole culture gets this whole culture of good vibes only, right? The spiritual world, good vibes only. I mean, now it's a little bit, there's more discussion, but not hardly enough on the shadow or the self that we want to keep hidden because we feel it's not productive in our life. This whole culture of good vibes, love and lights, right? Stay positive, high vibrations only. It taught a whole generation to look away from the hidden self, to skip it, to think it didn't matter. to slap a pretty affirmation over a deep wound and call it healed. They even have a name for it now. It's called spiritual bypassing, right? Um, and I have to tell you, with all the love I have, spiritual bypassing does not work. It has never worked. It will not work because your hidden self does not respond to being ignored. Not ever. It only responds to one thing: being seen. Again, the more you ignore the hidden self, the more it will want attention, the harder it will knock, the more the door will crack open and the hidden self will want to take over. Okay? So you cannot heal. If you can't recognize it, see it, name it, look at it, it's not going to heal. You cannot become whole by only loving the parts of you that were already acceptable to everybody else. There's no uniqueness in that. That takes even away your little eccentric little spin to yourself, right? Little uniqueness, right? Carl Jung said that you do not have to get enlightened by imagining. You do not get enlightened by imagining figures of light. You get there by making the darkness conscious. And there's fire in that darkness. So wholeness was never about getting rid of your hidden self. Wholeness is integration, as I've been saying, shadow integration. It is you turning around, opening your eyes, facing the parts of you that you said, I don't like that about me. Right? We all have the, I don't like that about me. And gently, finally, walking those aspects back home. I would even say walking them back home, welcome them with a big hug, and saying, you're okay, just the way you are, right? You're okay, just the way you are. And I don't want you to think, this is all heavy lifting, because it is not. As I was saying earlier, I was smiling. It was exciting, right? Because here's the reward. On the other side of facing your hidden self is your energy. As I said, it's the engine, right? It's the engine. Your power, your realness, your freedom. Your freedom, your liberation. Think about it. Every part of yourself you keep locked in the basement costs you energy. You know how much work it is to keep you hidden? It's a lot. People do it a whole lifetime, and then they wake up in the morning and say, who am I? Right? Who am I? I don't know where my life went. I shoulda, woulda, coulda. Right? But it costs energy just to hold the door shut. It's exhausting. I know. Look, we have done it most of our life, right? But the moment you turn around and face it, you get all the energy back. I'm not saying all at once. I'm just saying once we direct those frequencies into ways that can bank energy that thus and then can be shared, right? That is the work. Where does this sphere situate itself? How do I use it effectively? Right? Where is this anger? What can I do to it to make it work? Right? I'm doing karate chops, right? That is the orchestration of your life, as opposed to dancing to somebody else's or playing an instrument as to the music someone else composed. That's moving from forced, right, into being a force, right? How can I use this thing in a way that makes me that's joyful, right? In whichever way that falls, there's so many areas in life. How can I use this in a way that increases my finances? There's hunger, there's anger, there's anxiety, this way too much over the top personality, right? How can I use it in a way that's effective? And even though it's not about always being effective, right? Although we want to be effective, I gotta have me some fun. Not bad fun, not low vibrational fun, but high vibrational fun, right? There's just so many ways to conceive and think about application of the shadow self and what phenomenal outcomes that can bring to your life. And if you're happy, everybody's happy, right? So you get that energy back. This is where your buried anger becomes healthy boundaries, my friend, where your hidden desire becomes real aliveness again, where your buried gifts finally come up out of hiding and into the black light where they've always belonged. The gold, my friend, is in the basement. And that is why your hidden self deserves attention. All right. Now, not so you hate it. I'm not even trying to make that a viable option in all of this. So you can go down there and get your treasures back. Go get your treasures. Right. It's not all about out there. Some of that treasure, a lot of that treasure is in here, my friends. You cannot heal what you cannot face. I'm going to say it again. And everything you have been refusing to face is exactly where your power has been hiding. And this week, we're going to do this work. Okay. So today is an invitation, my friends. I just want to give a general, discussion of the hidden self. That's all. Not to fight your hidden self, not to fix it, not to be scared of it. Scar girl, no, don't be scared of it. Just to turn it around, right? To stop running and to start making a little peace with the parts of you that you exiled a long time ago. All right. And this today is only the general doorway. This week, you and I, we go deeper into exactly, right, this work. And so here's how we can keep walking together. So be here tomorrow, 2:30 Eastern time, because we're going all the way in. And the live stream is called The World Called You a Shadow, right? Live here on Power Profit TV. Trust me, you don't want to miss that one. And Tuesdays is commentary where I mix in some social phenomena, social cultural phenomena, political phenomena to give it resonance to this day. I like to situate these discussions of the 9 bodies of light in the real, in the lived, right? Because this is where we all have to be. This is where we are in 3D reality. In the bridge phase, right? The 4D phase. I did a live stream on that not too long ago. Second, when you're ready to go deeper and you want to go with community, I implore you, come on and join the temple, okay? You get free 7-day trial at power-profit.com/groups. And the third, if you want to know exactly where your signal is the strongest, we can do a shadow read, right? We can do a shadow read, and that can be part of the 9 body point reading, okay? It's one of the fastest ways to start seeing your hidden self, absolutely. So come sit with me for a 9 body point reading. That is on power-profit.com. And so let me just pull up the QR codes for you. All this stuff is on, well, except for the reading. So here's a QR code for the temple. All right. The Ascension temple. Okay. The Ascension community. I've talked about it a lot. Feel free to visit with this QR code. And, 7-day free trial. You can end it within 7 days. It's an automatic subscription. It just comes out. And there's a low rate of $44 per month, and you can stop it at any time. If you want to do this in community, I implore you to check out the temple. Okay. And this is the 9 body point reading. Okay. QR code here. All right. And this is a good way to dip into your shadow, to understand where it may be situated. Could be multiple points. Doesn't mean there's nothing that's an issue. It's just that it allows more awareness and spaces, places to begin the work. Right? We have to see a name in order to transform. Okay, so that is there. All right, and I think that is it. And don't forget, tomorrow we're going to start with the Still in the Gate of Ba commentary tomorrow. Oh, yeah. So, look, thank you so much for being here today. I'm not going to be long-winded and keep talking. This is supposed to be a 30-minute presentation that went, or 30-minute live stream that went for an hour and 11 minutes. But not a moment wasted. Okay. Thank you so much for being here today. I sincerely appreciate your time and attention. I ask you to please like, subscribe, and hit notifications so that we get into the algorithm that is critically important for visibility, so other people can see this as well. And I also want to say, look, thank you, my friends. Thank you for being here. Tomorrow we go all in with the shoot. All right, SHUT in the Gate of Ba. Have a blessed rest of the day. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.